Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be looking into the mysterious disappearance of Susie Lamplough on the 28th of July 1986. The disappearance of Susie Lamplough on the 28th of July 1986 is one of the most strange missing people cases that is known in this country, and it's one of the coldest as well. It's not been solved since 1986, and tragically Susie's family and friends still don't know what happened to her. Susie was an estate agent that worked in Fulham in London, and on the day of her disappearance she went to meet a man called Mr Kipper at a property in London. Now, none of Susie's colleagues knew who this man was. It was just found in her diary that that was the person she was going to meet and that she was meeting him at 12:45 p.m. Susie's meeting at 12:45 p.m. on the day of the 28th of July in 1986 was at a location in London called Shorrold's Lane. As I said, she was meeting a man called Mr Kipper at the property to show him around the property to see if he was interested in it at 12:45 on that day. She drives her white Ford Fiesta to the location and parks around half a mile away. I'm guessing perhaps there wasn't any parking any nearer than that. Her car is then found around 10 p.m. on the day of her disappearance. Her purse is found in the side pocket of one of the doors. The car keys are missing. There's no signs of a struggle or anything strange in the car. The car is fingerprinted, but no fingerprints are found within the car that shouldn't have been there. Now, in 1986, DNA was certainly not around in the way that it is now. They weren't able to sort of do DNA testing on the car. I think the main thing that was done forensically was the fingerprinting. As I said, unfortunately, that didn't yield any results, and that didn't bring any news for Susie's family as to where she was or what could have happened to her. Now, there are numerous witness reports, although unconfirmed, that Susie was seen outside the property in Shorrold's Lane around 12:45 p.m. with a very well-dressed man in nice clothing. I'm not sure if that means a suit, but he was certainly well turned out, and apparently he was seen to be holding a bottle of champagne. One of the witnesses says the same thing, that she sees him with this well-dressed man with the champagne bottle and that Susie gets into the car. Another witness reports the same thing, although a slightly different story, in that this witness says that she saw Susie arguing with the man. Now, I'm not sure what the witnesses said the car was that she was getting into, but it wasn't her Ford Fiesta. Now, a black BMW is also seen or meant to have been seen in the area at the time, and it was a left-hand drive black BMW. It was seen to be parked near Susie's car, half a mile away from the property that she was showing Mr Kipper around, and it's believed that it did have something to do with her disappearance. Now, I don't know if anyone out there knows about this case, or if anyone knows anything about the case specifically. If they've not gone to the police, please go to the police. This happened in 1986. I mean, I was born in the 80s. This poor family have had an awful long time to not know what happened to their daughter. I don't even know if all of Susie's family is still alive. I imagine she's still got friends and siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles out there that want to know what happened to her. So if anyone does know what happened to Susie, please get in contact with the police. I imagine it would be the Metropolitan Police in London that you need to get in contact with, or get in contact with Crime Stoppers and let a family have some peace to know what happened to their loved one. Something else that's worth noting about Susie's car when it was found on the day of her disappearance around 10 p.m. that night was that the car's handbrake was off. Now, that is a bit strange. It shouldn't have been. It should have been perhaps left on. So that is a bit of information that is quite weird. As I said, I don't know why Susie had to park half a mile away from the property she was showing to Mr Kipper. I imagine it was due to the fact there might not have been a lot of parking, as London is notoriously bad for parking. Now, a man of the name of John Cannan is apparently involved in this. The police, especially Scotland Yard, believe he has some involvement. He is a convicted murderer. He's a nasty, horrible piece of work, but he has always denied any involvement in the disappearance of Susie. Now, apparently people he's been in prison with say, although this is hearsay and it could be a lot of our rubbish, that he admitted to her murder and that he buried her under the patio of his mother's house in Sutton Coldfield, which is in England. There are also reports from one of John's ex-girlfriends that he did definitely murder Susie and that she's buried somewhere within the UK near a military barracks. Now, whether that's true, I don't know. Obviously, this is all hearsay and things that I found out when researching this case, but I am pleased to say that the police did search the land near this military barracks to see if Susie's body was there, and it wasn't found. They also searched the mother's house in Sutton Coldfield, and again, it wasn't found. Now, as I said, John Cannan is a convicted murderer. He's a nasty piece of work. And what is interesting in this case and his potential involvement in it is that he was released from a prison hospital only a number of days, just a few days before Susie goes missing. Now, he's known to attack women. He's attacked women in the past quite savagely. As I said, he's a murderer. So it's highly likely that he has got involvement in this case, and he just doesn't want to admit to it because he's a nasty piece of work and doesn't want to give peace to Susie's poor family and friends. Now, John Cannan was convicted in July 1988 of the murder of Shirley Banks that he carried out the year before in October 1987. He was also convicted for an attempted murder the day before he killed Shirley. And not only that, he was convicted for an attack, an assault, a savage assault on a woman who fortunately didn't die in 1986. Now, that's the same year that Susie goes missing, that he's convicted of an attack on a woman. The next year, he commits murder, and he does actually attempt another murder the day before that's not successful. So that shows you that John Cannan is clearly a nasty piece of work who was committing crimes a lot in the late 80s, and it leads me to believe that he potentially is the most likely suspect in the potential murder and the disappearance of Susie. Now, there is another very strange link to the case and the disappearance of Susie Lamplough, and that is with Steve Wright. Now, a lot of you English people, true crime fans, and maybe some of you guys abroad will be aware that Steve Wright carried out the savage murder of 5 women in Ipswich some years ago, and there is a very, very strange, tenuous link with the disappearance of Susie. In 1982, Susie worked as a beautician on the cruise liner Queen Elizabeth II. And at the time, Steve Wright also worked on the same cruise liner. Now, once the police got wind of this, the fact that Susie had previously worked on a cruise liner with a convicted murderer, a murderer of 5 women who's currently in prison for those crimes, they clearly looked into it, but the police felt there was not enough evidence to convict Steve Wright of the crime. Clearly there wasn't any DNA, as I said, in 1986 and 1987 and 8 and all the late 80s, when these crimes were committed by John Cannan. Steve Wright doesn't commit the crimes in the 80s, he's a lot later in the future. There wasn't any CCTV. As I said, forensics wasn't as good. There wasn't DNA testing like there is now. So sadly, it's probably likely no one's ever going to be convicted if Susie was murdered. Now, the connection with Steve Wright I find really disturbing. It's likely he could have had something to do with it. But would he have remembered a woman he worked on a boat with in 1982? You know, she dies 4 years later. I know that I've not been on one, but I've seen them on telly and in films. Cruise liners are massive, massive boats, and I have seen them in the sea when I've been on holiday on the beach in France, and they are huge, huge boats. So it's highly likely, with hundreds, if not thousands, of members of staff on these boats, that Steve Wright and Susie may never have met. Now, I could be wrong, and they could have met, and he may be responsible for her tragic disappearance and potential death, but it could be more likely that John Cannan was involved, as he was known to be in the area of Susie's death in Fulham in London at the time, whereas I don't know that Steve Wright was. So the connections with John Cannan are a lot stronger than the ones with Steve Wright. What is weird, though, is the fact that there are connections with 2 murderers. Now, it's likely that John Cannan is a serial killer, and he's only ever been convicted of 1 murder. Who's to say that he didn't carry out loads of others? He attempted to murder at least 1 or 2 other women that we know of, and he successfully, tragically, did murder 1 woman. But did he really murder more than 1 woman? And was Susie another one of these women? I really hope not. Perhaps Susie's living her best life in another country, but the fact that her car was left behind, her purse was found in the car, no activity was ever carried out in any of her bank accounts, and she disappeared off the face of the earth, no trace was left, does lead me to sadly believe that Susie was murdered. Now, as I said before, if any of you guys know anything about this case, please share your comments, but also if any of you know anything about the case enough to help out with the police investigation, which I imagine has wound down now because it's so many years ago that this tragic disappearance of Susie happened. But if you know anything, or you've got any help that could be given to the police, please get in contact with the Metropolitan Police, ring Crime Stoppers, you know, get in touch with the authorities if you know something, as it would be fantastic if Susie's family and friends could finally get some answers all these many, many years later. Anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you're enjoying all of my content. I'm really enjoying making these videos. As I always say, like and subscribe. I hope you're all keeping well in these troubling times. Let's hope by the summer lockdowns for everyone and coronavirus might have eased and that we can get back to some kind of normality. Anyway, guys, like I said, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll be back again soon with more true crime videos, and some paranormal ones are definitely coming in the next fortnight. Take care, everyone, and I'll be back very soon. Bye for now.